Finding an apartment in the Netherlands is quite hard, and each city has their own pros and cons. But Amsterdam is probably a quintessential of Dutch housing crisis, and finding a place to live could be very challenging. I just moved to Amsterdam a month ago, and in this video I want to share some knowledge that hopefully will help you to navigate this hostile environment. I must say sorry right away for backlinking you to my previous video, but I actually made a pretty detailed video about renting an apartment here in the Netherlands already. I just rewatched it, and honestly, a lot of tips and advice there holds up still to this day, so I definitely recommend you checking it out. In this video, I didn't want to repeat myself, so I will try to focus on Amsterdam challenges, and of course I will give you some additional general advice that I learned since then. Let's just talk about my personal experience finding a rental apartment here in Amsterdam in 2026. This is my apartment, by the way. First of all, you have to arrive in the Netherlands. I keep saying it, and I said it in the previous video. I think you will have a very hard time finding a place from abroad and even from other places in the Netherlands, so I definitely recommend you to find a temporary apartment here in Amsterdam. It could be staying at your friend, it could be one of the short-term rentals, it could be a hotel. We have a few of these kind of modern hotels that can host you for months. One of the famous one is Social Hub, and also I think there is Numa and City Den. A few of them, I will link everything to the description. From my personal experience, I stayed in a apart hotel that's called Makkerstoren. I was kind of lucky, I guess. The whole building was just opening up, and they have their kind of like office/apartments rental situation, and it's a temporary rental. You cannot rent it out more than 6 months. And I rented an apartment for 2,500, I think, per month, and it's extremely cheap for Amsterdam for short-term rent, and it was because the building was opening up. The general pricing is, especially in the touristic season, in the spring and summer, is around 3,000, and it can hit 5,000 per month for better places. Just search everything. Maybe you'll get lucky with something like this when it's opening up. Maybe you'll find something in Amstelveen, Haarlem, and other close by cities, but I definitely recommend you coming here for a month for this purpose, for finding an apartment, because it's going to be hard as it is. Since the time is the essence when you're looking for an apartment, especially if you're paying for some short-term rent solution, you have to have a plan. You have to really think about all what you want, the areas, if it's important for you. Of course, it's going to be better if you kind of searching through the whole city, but if you have in mind specific areas like closer to your work or whatever, definitely jot it all down. Have multiple options as well. Write everything down, like as much as you can think of, just write it down, and you're going to be thankful for that when you actually start looking, because it's going to be easier to navigate, to figure out what you want. And of course, know your budget. In general, I'm just stating the obvious here, but in general, the higher budget you have, the easier time finding an apartment you will be having. Also, you need to know about the income requirements, because some people get quite shocked by the rules here. Many rentals here, they ask for a certain amount of income compared to the rental price. It's becoming a bit ridiculous, because some apartments ask for 4x of their apartment price to have as your income, which is absolutely insane, but I guess it's for apartments that have a lot of potential tenants and they're just trying to filter it out this way. Just be ready for that. Most of the apartments I noticed ask for 3x. So if you have a salary of, let's say, 6,000 euro, be aware that you might have trouble applying for apartments that cost more than 2,000 euro per month. It can be reduced a little bit, or rather supplied with your savings. So for example, if you have a pretty good portfolio of invested money, or even better cash on savings accounts, you can just show it to them and they can kind of reduce the income requirements in that case. Also, of course, you have to know if you're planning to find a furnished or unfurnished apartment. I noticed that furnished places are a bit expensive, but it's not dramatic. So if you don't want to buy furniture, if you're not sure you're going to stay in Amsterdam, I would recommend recommend look for furnished apartments, and surprisingly in Amsterdam there are quite a lot of them, maybe 30%, 40%, something like that. I don't really have a number, just a hinge. And of course, know which documents you need will apply. You can learn it quite easily, and I talked it in the previous video as well. Just have your documents somewhere close so you can fill the forms. Most of the stuff happens digitally, so make sure you not only have a physical documents but also all the photos of them so you can upload them quite easily. I never saw in the Netherlands that you need to have physical documents for anything, to be honest. Not buying a house, not renting a house. I was just reading about Germany where you need to bring the folder with your documents, and it's a bit funny because here everything is digital, but make sure you have, of course, the digital copies or photographs. Next, what I recommend is to research the regulations, the government rules, especially if you're new in the Netherlands and you're coming from abroad. Research the Affordable Rent Act, social housing, mid-range rentals. I will link also everything below. It's quite important. You don't need to read through the whole statements and government laws. Just feed it to ChatGPT or Claude or whatever LLM of your choice and ask it to teach you, to explain you the most important points you need to know as an aspiring tenant. It's a good idea to just know your rights before you actually start listening to the agents and managing companies. Also, one thing to know is seasoning. Somewhere in spring, the market starts to be more saturated. There are more people looking for apartments. I think in summer it also kind of active, but maybe not during the vacation. So July, August, I guess it's a little bit lower. September, October is the highest peak. A lot of students also coming. It's not necessary that you're competing for the student apartments, but it's still the market is a bit heated. I think always the best time to look for a new apartment is winter, because winter everything is gray, it's dark, nobody wants to go outside, nobody wants to go look for apartments. So I think winter is the best time to look for rentals. Let's talk about Amsterdam. If you are new to the city, if you haven't been here or haven't lived here, definitely recommend you to start exploring it. Areas are very different from each other. Even one street nearby another street can have a completely different vibes. Try to find some time after work or before work or whatever is best suited for you and just walk around, biking around, trying to find the feeling of the city, the feeling of different areas, the vibes, how it feels in the nighttime, in the evenings, how it feels in the mornings. The area and even the street where you live can directly impact the quality of life you're gonna be having in Amsterdam. Amsterdam is separated in 9 kind of districts and 25 small hidden areas. So let me talk about the areas that I personally visited and explored a little bit. So Westerpark, it's actually where I live. It includes even smaller neighborhoods, Westerpark, Houthavens, Pardamerbuurt, and I live in Houthavens, for example, right now. I really love this area. Pardamerbuurt is pretty good. It has more like an old school vibe, I guess, old Amsterdam neighborhood. All the areas around Westerpark I think is pretty good. I really enjoy being here. In general, I really like West. It's a great area. I definitely recommend it. Sloterdijk is where I live, short-term rental. Sloterdijk is fine, but it's a bit dead because it's an area where they're planning to build a lot of houses, a lot of buildings. Right now there's almost nothing, and when I was living there I was just taking the bike in the morning and just biking somewhere to the city. So it's gonna be a part of your routine if you're gonna live in Sloterdijk, but it has a good station. It's pretty busy station there, and in the future it's gonna be a lot more housing I think there, but also at the same time it means it's gonna be a lot of construction. There's a centrum, so I've never really considered living somewhere in the centrum. It's absolute chaos. The tourists are everywhere, drinking, clubs, bars. I do not recommend you to live there unless you're, I don't know, 19 years old and you want to go to the bars and clubs every day. In all the other cases, it's going to be a pretty bad experience. Jordan can feel a little bit better as a part of Centrum. I feel it's still a little bit more beautiful, a little bit more Amsterdamish beautiful vibes. Tourists are there as well, but it feels a little bit more calm. So if you want to live in the Centrum, I recommend you at least consider Jordan. It's a beautiful area. I wouldn't want to live there as well, but it's nice to walk around. Also, I really like Bolo, which is Boston Lumber. It's a really nice area near the Western Park. I go there to cafes, to some specialty coffee places, to restaurants, breakfast places. Super cool, super vibrant, a lot of stuff going on there. I really like it. I think second, my favorite area in the city is Oude West. Second after the Houthavens where I live. If I ever consider moving somewhere, it would be, I think, Oude West. It just happens that I always there. The cinema that I go, it's there. There's a really nice library that's not as crowded as the central one. There's a lot of food and restaurants that I like, specialty coffee. It's just a great area, and it has absolutely incredible vibes of new buildings plus old Amsterdam beauty, which is, I think, a perfect synergy. Also, De Bartjes, I think it's very close to Oude West, so it also has similar vibes. I also know a little bit of the Pipe. A lot of people love this area. It has a Vondelpark. It has a rich people vibe, I would say. I don't know. I don't like Zout in general. Not the Zuidas. Zuidas is just completely dead outside of working hours because it's mostly offices. It's not nice to live there, and it's super expensive. Oude Zuid and the Pipe, I don't know. Maybe I don't know it well, but I didn't get it yet. And I think the Pipe is getting super crowded at this point with tourists, same as Jordan. But I don't know. Explore it. If you like Vondelpark, for example, I would prefer Westerpark to Vondelpark any day. But it's bigger. There's much more space and greenery there. So on paper, it's better. In terms of people, I think it's worse. New West and Oostdorp, they consider it to be a little bit of kind of shady areas, especially in the past. I think maybe 5-10 years ago, they weren't good at all, especially Oostdorp. I think Oostdorp still feels a bit shady. I've been there a couple of times. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but you probably know it when you're in the area where everyone looks a bit weird and shady and kind of, I don't know, everyone looking at each other and kind of like, Amsterdam is super safe in general, but Oostdorp, I don't know, I didn't feel well. And I think with gentrification of Amsterdam, it's getting safer and safer. I think New West is fine. If you especially want to save some money, I think it's totally okay. Oostdorp, I would avoid. So there's a North, of course. I love North. I decided not to live there because North is located across the river, across I. It makes it a bit harder to come to the city because you always rely on ferries. Ferries, especially near the central station, they goes really fast and really often, but it's public transportation still. You might get into a situation when ferry get cancelled. And NDSM, which is another area that I really like, their ferry is even worse because sometimes you can wait for 30 minutes for the next ferry. The trip of the ferry is much longer as well. It's a cool areas to go to. I went to NDSM many times to watch World Cup football, for example. They have a big screens there. There are great bars right on the river. They have a lot of space there, a lot of new buildings. It's cool. And also a little bit of Berlinish vibes with graffiti and a bit industrial design. I know people who live in NDSM and they absolutely hate it there. It's construction. It's a lot of raves there. It's ferry dependency. Vollewijk, it's called, and iPlane, I think. It's a bit better. It's closer to Central across the river, but still, it's a new area. It's a developing area with all the downsides. It's also extremely windy, so if you hate wind, don't recommend North, but just go there and check it out because you might love it. There's also Eiburg. It's an area if you want to live a little bit further away from Amsterdam and pay way less money for the apartment. Eiburg is a completely new area. It has a tram that goes into the city. It takes like 15 minutes to get to the central, which doesn't sound a lot, but if you do it a lot and if you don't need to go to central, you need to take into account the trip to your place. So it can take like 30 minutes from home to get somewhere in the city. For some people, it's deal breaker. I also didn't want it. I think to experience Amsterdam, like the central areas, events and stuff like that, you need to be closer to central, but it's a good area and I think it's kind of family friendly. So yeah, you can consider living there as well. Together with with Eiburg, there's Amstelveen and Haarlem, for example. So the cities that are nearby Amsterdam. I think there are a few of them, small villages near Amsterdam. I don't know them very well. I only been to Amstelveen a few times. Amstelveen is fine. A lot of people like it because it's close to Zuid. I don't like Zuid, and that's why I don't like Amstelveen, I guess, as well. And also it's a suburban area, so you have to understand what are you getting. It's good if you have kids, I guess, if you have car, but I already lived in suburbia in Zwolle, so that was enough for me, so I didn't consider it. But I think in general Amstelveen is pretty good. Haarlem is a little bit outstandish here because Haarlem is the city on its own. If you live in Amstelveen, you probably spend your time in Amsterdam. If you live in Haarlem, you might as well spend time in Haarlem. So it's kind of a different city, but it's also extremely close to Amsterdam. Haarlem is a very beautiful city, so if you're thinking about considering cities nearby, Haarlem can be a good choice, and it's much calmer than Amsterdam, less tourists as well. Also, last area I wanted to talk about is Blijmer. Just don't go there. Just don't live there yet. Some people say Blijmer is what Nieuwe West was a few years ago, so it's still kind of very shady area. If you go there, there's like a trash everywhere, shady people. It's not pleasant to be around, but at the same time it gentrifies a lot. Because what happens in Amsterdam? There are a lot of creative people here. There are artists and startup founders and whatever. People who kind of drive fashion, drive what become hipstery, I guess. The thing is, with these people, they often don't have much money, so they move to cheaper areas, right? And then people with money, they also want to be cool kids, right? So they look for these areas where all these creative people live and move there as well. Drive off more poor population, I guess, and that's how gentrification happens. Some people say that Blijmer will gonna get to this transition as well, because a lot of people moving there now who want to save some money. But I wouldn't recommend this area. Just go there and check it out for yourself if you want. As I already said, just walk around the area, check it out at night, check it out at daytime, check it out on Friday evening, Saturday, Sunday, what's the vibes there, during the rush hour, during the working time, lunch, whatever. Just try and figure out what is going to be to live in this area. And check the facilities, of course. Is there Albert Heijn nearby? Is there Jumbo or other stores? If you have kids, of course, you know that. Without me, I think schools, daycare, stuff like that. Whatever else you want, maybe gym, maybe you want to swim in the canal. So is there a canal nearby? You're going to plug in Hood Maps again because I recommended it in the previous video and it's still pretty good. It's kind of a bit funny website because people can leave the comments around certain areas on the map and it's just completely user generated. There could be some jokes, like some Amsterdam jokes, could be some harsh comments, but in general, you reading them and if you process them and kind of throw away all the joke sites, you can kind of understand what this area is about. Usually it's pretty accurate, I would say. That's all I wanted to say about the city, so let's actually talk about the process that I went through and tips that I have. First of all, apply to everything, subscribe to everything, read everything. So any tool you can find, if you can subscribe to their newsletter, if it's an agency, real estate agency, if it's a management company, whatever, Funda newsletter, Paradius newsletter. I'm not gonna go deeper into tools because I already recommend everything in the previous videos. I'm just trying to say everything that's missing, I guess. Try to subscribe to everything, check it out as soon as possible, set up notifications, just try to read everything and apply quick. Try to understand how all these services and management companies and all the other real estate businesses works. For example, there are big, I don't know if it's management company or a builder, they called MVGM. They basically own half of the North apartments and they have their own website that often have apartments that don't going to be published on Funda or Paradius, so it's very useful to use them. And they use a lottery system, so you can, I think, apply for 5 apartments only there. Then you wait for a lottery to happen. It has dates when the lottery happens. First lottery that you're gonna get selected for viewings. When the viewings ends, second lottery who won the apartment. I think it's a quite fair system, but I think they got to this system not because they don't know how to select. It's just because they specifically typically have quite cheap apartments in the new buildings, and a lot of people like that. I don't know about the quality of these apartments. They might not be as good. In general, they have a lot of applicants, so they have to select somehow, and I think it's forbidden by law to select by any of the human judging metrics. So by race, by gender, by income, you cannot really select. Of course, a lot of people do it, so they just choose the whatever the easiest method, and it's a lottery system. And I think it's fair. All of these companies, big companies, they have their own system, they have their own forms, how they apply. Sometimes the building projects, like for example, there's 7 or 10 buildings near the Wester Park, very new, they have their own website, and they have their own system there. For example, you have to pay a little bit up front to be invited for viewings. Weird system, but what can you do? Apply for every viewing. If you like the area, if you more or less like the apartment, just go to the viewing, especially at first when you're only learning. It's very useful experience. So don't just wait for the perfect apartment to be published, because you're probably not going to win it anyway from the first time. Don't just try to jump on the first apartment you found. You have to live in there actually, usually for years, and it's not going to be great if it's a shitty apartment with rats. Also, I wanted to talk about pricing points. Apartments starting from 1200 and 1300, but in general more like a 1500 and until 1900, I guess. And this is the most desirable apartments in Amsterdam. Probably the cheapest you can rent an apartment. There's of course shared rooms, but it's a different topic. These apartments will get, I don't know, 100, 200 applicants, and it's going to be extremely hard to win it over. If you're aiming to this category, to these pricing points, it's going to be hard, it's going to be painful. I'm not saying you shouldn't apply for them, but I'm just saying it's going to be quite hard. Then there's a next category, a little bit in the middle, which starts at 1900 and ends at around 2300, I would say. So 2300. It's a middle range. It's usually a better apartments, bigger or in the better areas. Still has a lot of applicants, but already you are not in this insane place where everyone is just trying to win these apartments. This lower category, it also has a lot of applicants who already live in a little bit more expensive apartments, but they just continue searching for cheaper options. Half of the city could be there, I don't know. This middle ground, I think it's a good spot to find a place in Amsterdam, especially in the more or less central areas. You can find actually something decent, and you have actually a chance to win it. And of course, there's like a higher pricing points. So we start at 23 or 2400, and it goes to infinity. I saw apartments for 9,000 euro per month. And this category is nice to be in. If you're willing to pay for an apartment 2,500 euro, you're going to have much easier time to rent in Amsterdam. At 2,500, I think you're going to have a lot of good options, not many competition. You're going to be just looking around and selecting a good spot. If you're willing to pay a little bit even more, in addition to that, you're going to get a good area or a good building or a good apartment. Full disclosure, I'm just transparently telling my story here. That's where I went. I'm not a rich person, but for me, this experiment living in Amsterdam, it's not just I'm moving to another city, I need to work here or whatever. For me, it's kind of part of my life experiments, right? So this is my experiment to live in a bigger city. So it had a few requirements for me. First, I wanted to live closer to Centrum. Second, I wanted to live in a good apartment, so my life wouldn't turn into hell, and I would hate the city just because I have a bad quality of life inside my apartment or inside my area. So I wanted a good area as well. I realized pretty quickly that I will have to pay a little bit more. So we rented this apartment for 2,800 euro, which is absolutely crazy to pay for rental. I seriously doubt I'm gonna stay here for a long term, so I know it's a kind of fixed cost. For me, 2 years, it tops how much I'm gonna be living in this apartment. From there, I kind of make my own conclusion, and if I wanna stay in Amsterdam, I think I will consider buying. But it gave me so much less headache in finding this place, because all the apartments that I looked for that had this price, 2,500 plus, nobody wanted to rent them. So I was talking to real estate agent and I said, like, how many applicants you already have? And they're like, nobody wants to rent, it's too expensive. And I'm like, okay, then it's clear that in this category it's quite easy. There was an apartment that was really huge. It was 100 square meters, I think. Same category. Also, nobody wanted to live there. There was an apartment a little bit smaller in the pipe, but it has a great outside area. And there was this apartment for 2,800, which has, I think, the best ratio of great area plus more or less good apartments, a new building. It's my favorite area in Amsterdam so far. I haven't, of course, explored the city properly, but Houthaven so far, absolutely love this area. Such a great vibes, so much water, park nearby, Wester Park, and also it's quite calm area and close to the central. And the apartment itself is also good quality. It has all the downsides that I expected from the apartment, is hearing your neighbors. So I can hear people walking upstairs. I can hear the guy from the next to us. What can you do? I think all the new builds nowadays build this way that you can hear your neighbors. Unfortunately, the only way to not have the neighbor noise is to have your own house. That's my conclusion personally. That's my experience of finding this place. It was easy, and often these more expensive apartments, they don't have this income requirement, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to rent it, because I don't have 9,000 euro of income per month. Because they don't have many applicants, they're willing to give it to you without any problems. And the last part that I wanted to talk about is after you win the bid, after they selected you, is please check everything that's working. Don't believe anything that a real estate agent or whoever renting it to you tells you. Often they're trying to just rent out the apartment and they're willing to say anything, so you just rent it out. Sometimes they don't check anything when they're getting the apartment from previous tenant. There might some things broken. Both of these experiences happened to us, but I also know a lot of people who had these experiences. In our apartment, the dishwasher was broken, ventilation wasn't working properly, heating floor also wasn't working, and also the door to the balcony. We noticed both of these things. Dishwasher and ventilation we noticed later. Try to check everything, try to write it down, try to just ask them how much time are they gonna take to fix everything, because in The Hague, our first apartment, they promised us to install the blinders from the sun. We waited for 1 year this installation, so we left the apartment and then only was it installed for the next tenant. It always happens, so try to be as thorough as possible. Don't listen to anything they say. They can say like, oh, everything is working, we checked everything. Just don't believe anything. Just say, I want to check, double check everything, turn the water everywhere, turn the gas stoves, turn the oven, turn the lights, turn the heating, everything. And if something is not working, try to schedule fix as soon as possible. You do have protection from the government and other services by law. Landlord has to fix everything, but it's gonna be annoying if you want to go this route. So for example, for this apartment, heating floor wasn't working for a month already. It creates inconvenience for me, technically, on paper. I can go to the court and I can sue them, so they will have to refund me the partial rent. And I sent email to them and said, okay, guys, you have to do partial reduction, otherwise I will have to go to certain services. And they said no. And, well, what do you think? Of course, I didn't go to sue them, etc. If it would have been winter, yes, of course. And that's how they found a kind of a loop out of this situation. They said, because it's summer, it's kind of not inconvenient for me because I wouldn't be using heating anyway. So they kind of found it loophole. I do think if I would go to the court, go to lawyers, I would get my reduction, but I just don't want to do that. So in general, you have protection. There are a lot of laws protecting the tenants in the Netherlands, which is great. They will probably fix everything, but yeah, if you don't want to go to lawyers, it's going to be annoying. Just try to do everything right away. Get a written promise from them. They're going to fix it at a certain date. Right now, when you're getting any papers, any documents, before signing, just ask LLM to check everything. It's still not perfect, but it's much better than human without any knowledge of the laws of the Netherlands. It can read all your documents, some laws, it can pattern match them and try to find some holes. So actually in our rental agreement, Claude found 3 or 4 things that been actually wrong, and we asked to change them, and they did. I think LLMs are great for double checking with documentation, with agreements and stuff like that. You have to just write a little bit better prompt, force it to actually check the laws, to read all the regulations. I think it's a very, very good tool for that. This video is already too long. I think I told you everything that I know about renting in Amsterdam. I do hope you will have a great time finding a place, and it's going to be an easy process, and you will find a good apartment. Just enjoy Amsterdam afterwards, and I see you in the next video. Doei doei!